the last episode, we explored the strange contradiction in human behavior. You don't negotiate with your alarm clock, but you negotiate with your own goals. You treat external obligations as non-optional, but internal commitments as flexible. Today, we're looking at what you're trying to do by negotiating, why you're trying to do that, what to do instead, and how to do it. Hey there, it's me, Cor, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control from Fitness to Flourishing. Here's the truth most people never fully accept. You are never actually negotiating with yourself. You are trying to negotiate with reality, and that never works. That's the entire psychology of the non-negotiable mind in one sentence. When you say, I don't feel like doing this right now, you're not having an internal debate. You're attempting to renegotiate the causal structure of reality. You're trying to get the effect without enacting the cause. Here's the thing. Reality does not negotiate. This is the first psychological mechanism behind self-negotiation. The attempt to escape causality. You want the clean house without the cleaning. You want the fit body without the exercise. You want the revenue without building the business. You want the character without the choices that shape it. Negotiation is the mind's attempt to rewrite the laws of cause and effect. But reality remains what it is, and the consequences of trying to evade it always show up. Maybe not immediately, but inevitably. This leads to the second mechanism, the illusion of no consequence. When you start a new job, there's no negotiation because the consequences are immediate and obvious. You know what happens if you decide not to show up. You know what happens if you don't learn the new skills. You know what happens if you don't adapt to the new schedule. You lose your job. But when it comes to your personal goals, the cost is so subtle you don't pay attention. When you skip the scheduled workout, don't clean the house, avoid the difficult conversation, or delay building your business, nothing bad happens today. And because nothing happens today, the mind concludes that you are safe. No harm done. You avoided discomfort and you got away with it. But you didn't get away scot-free. Every time you try to negotiate with reality, you pay the price in identity. You weaken your sense of who you are. You reinforce inconsistency. You teach yourself that your own word is optional. You erode self-trust, becoming someone you can't rely on. These are not psychological quirks. They are the internal consequences of trying to deny reality. Identity erosion instead of financial penalty. Self-doubt instead of social pressure. Loss of self-trust instead of loss of income. But because it seems you've avoided any immediate harm, you're okay with that. This leads to the third mechanism. The mind is wired to avoid discomfort when the cost of avoidance is delayed. We have survived as a species by responding well to immediate consequences, not long-term ones. This evolutionary heritage still applies today. That's why people can adopt 10 new behaviors at once when they start a new job. The consequences of not doing so are immediate, but they struggle to adopt even one new behavior when it's self-assigned because the long-term consequences are delayed and can be ignored in the short term. Self-assigned behavior is a matter of integrity. You don't have anyone providing the immediate consequences for avoiding your tasks other than yourself. What's missing is any personal identification with that behavior. Which brings us to the fourth mechanism. Negotiation thrives when identity is unclear. You don't negotiate with your alarm clock because the identity behind that action is settled. You are someone who fulfills your obligations and commitments when you've agreed to a job role, adhering to work schedules, completing projects well and on time, and learning new skills to adapt to changing economies and customer needs. But when it comes to your personal goals, the identity is not yet settled. You haven't fully become the person for whom those actions are non-negotiable. This is where the practice of Stoic strength training becomes so powerful. The practice is not a productivity system. It's a reality alignment system. When you schedule a task within the practice, you are accepting the causal chain. If I want this outcome, this action is required. If this action is required, it's non-negotiable. If it's non-negotiable, I execute. The practice removes the illusion of optionality. It removes the fantasy that you can get the effect without the cause. It removes the internal courtroom where you pretend reality might bend its own laws. And this is where the power of one becomes essential. Holding to your one purpose that's operationalized in the one task before you, the mind has nothing left to negotiate. There's no ambiguity, no loophole, no emotional filtering, no escape hatch. Just the next task and the identity that gets it done. This is the fifth mechanism. Negotiation dies and execution thrives in the presence of clarity. The non-negotiable mind is clarity. The practice is structure. The preferred self is identity. The discipline is reinforcement. Together, they eliminate the psychological and philosophical conditions that make negotiation seem possible. Negotiating with reality has only ever seemed possible. That is simply an error in understanding. The next time you catch yourself about to skip the workout, pick the easy option, or talk yourself out of the commitment, pause and ask one question. Am I trying to get the effect without enacting the cause? If the answer is yes, you already know how this ends. You've lived it 100 times before. I know I have. So here's the move. State the cause out loud. To have outcome X, then I must do action Y. Then do action Y, or let go of outcome X. But stop pretending there's a third door. There isn't one. This is the non-negotiable mind in use. In the next episode, we're going to look at one of the most seductive forms of negotiating with reality, perfectionism. We'll dismantle the illusion that if you can't do something well, you shouldn't do it at all. For now, keep this in mind. Negotiating with yourself is the attempt to escape causality. Effective execution is the full acceptance of it. That's it for today. Catch you next time.